What's going on, guys? I'm just out here at this field. I've got my Shazandra, and let's do a little bit of ranting. There's a lot of distractions out here, aren't there? You know, in its essence, if you want to say that, or at the tip of the spear of the mind control, we could say, they're keeping us away from this. Our lives have been largely replaced, have they not? Our instincts have been rewired. They're taking us away from this. They're taking us away from our natural lives, where we're supposed to be out in the green, around the trees, under the fresh air, grounded to the earth, spending time outside, bathing in bodies of clean water. Drop it, Luna. We're supposed to be drinking these types of fluids. We're supposed to be eating foods designed by the Creator. We're supposed to be spending time in our natural environment, but we are a domesticated creature that now lives in a false environment, that false environment being the Matrix. And I'm here to tell you that if you want to reconnect, if you want to experience greater health, if you want to start walking the path that leadeth into the promised land, that leads back to the source, that leads back to your highest potential, that leads to what the Stoics referred to as eudaimonia, or in layman's terms, that reconnecting to the higher self. You see, you're a false version of yourself. You're a version of yourself that's been programmed by the Matrix. You live in a false environment. You're disconnected from what the Creator designed you to do, and you don't even spend time outside anymore. It's just disgusting. So if you want to get back on track, if you want to reintegrate with the version of yourself that you were designed to be before you were led astray by the New World Order and filled full of the metals and the poisons, then you spend more time outside, ladies and gentlemen. You start eating foods that are more natural. You start unplugging from all the nonsense out here. Spend time outside. I've said it once and I'll say it again. The average American spends over 4 hours a day in front of a screen. Over 4 hours a day in front of a screen. And we've already gone into the science of the blue light that comes from these devices, the weaponized blue light that destroys your neurotransmitter health, takes your circadian rhythm out of alignment, suppresses your melatonin, which destroys your pineal gland health. Lunabug. So there really is nothing that makes me more happy, I shit you not, than being out here on this green field with my feet planted on the bare earth, getting my grounding on with my little dog. So what's crazy here too, folks, is if you look at these skies, these are fake ass fucking skies. Our skies have been genetically engineered. And if you don't believe me, if you think I sound like a nut, why don't you look up climate engineering or climate intervention? You see, what they used to say was a conspiracy theory, the geoengineering, the high altitude aerosol spray programs, stratospheric aerosol injections, SAI, all done under a program known as SRM, solar radiation management, the deliberate spraying of barium, aluminum, strontium, mylar fiber chaff, radioactive isotopes, scalar waves. Did I say that twice? You know, they used to call us conspiracy nuts for saying chemtrail. Well, chemtrails are real. It's just done under a program known as geoengineering, which is done under a head program known as solar radiation management. Luna, hey, you gotta stay over here, babe. They're spraying all this crap in the atmosphere to quote unquote combat the effects of global warming, but we know what's going on. So the reason I brought that up is because this environment could be even more beautiful if we had our skies. You see, they want to alter the weather, and they really want to take our circadian rhythm out of alignment. That's one of the greatest weapons against our health. Manipulated circadian rhythm. And that's done through the stress that we endure living in this concrete jungle. That takes our circadian rhythm out of alignment because it spikes our stress hormone. There's all sorts of chemicals and physiological functions that take place when you're chronically stressed about bills and payments and all the nonsense. Keeps you up at night, does it not? And on top of that, folks, the lighting systems that we're all exposed to, the light is weaponized with blue light. Goes into your photoreceptors, tells your brain it's basically the wrong time of day. And it does this at the expense of suppressing melatonin. That's what light or blue light does. That's why it's in the sun, and that's why you get alert. Your brain wakes up in the morning. It's because the blue light gets funneled or shuttled into your photoreceptors, and your brain is told to wake the fuck up. Luna, hey, where are you going? We got to stay in our corner, bug. Over here. So, lighting, stress, bad food, television, stimulation essentially keeps us up way too late. But it's really the stress, because the stress is, we can define everything under the banner or definition of stress, because it's not just emotional stress though. Like the stress of the blue light coming into your eyes and fucking your neurotransmitters up, your prolactin and your melatonin, that's stress too, folks. You see, a lot of people think that stress, or when stress is brought up, that's just, oh, he's talking about emotional stress or, worrying. No, our bodies are stressed. Stress is when something or an organism takes on too much, almost more than it can bear. And there's a wear and tear effect from that. So all the light exposure, all the disharmony that we experience on a regular basis because we're not grounded, it causes stress. We have iron overload, which causes stress on the body, aluminum overload. I mean, come on, folks. All the research is out there to prove that this is the case. We are toxic. And on top of that, the people are damn near just dead inside. I hate to say that, and I hate to sound judgmental, but it's true. The light has been snuffed out, and we now live in the land of the bottom feeder, I like to call it, or a fallen state. The land of the bottom feeder is kind of a symbolic, metaphoric reference that I use to describe a world where a limitless species accepts limitations, and we destroy this sacred earth and lose our potential and just basically fall from grace. That's what's happened here on earth. You see, you are a fallen angel. Whether you believe that or not, you are a fallen angel. And you've accepted the role of, I'm John Smith, or I'm Michael Thompson, and I'm a carpenter, or I'm a electrician, or I'm Jane the cook. You are not defined by your profession, folks. You are not defined by what you do to earn a living. But isn't that kind of the status quo nowadays? I mean, I can't tell you how many times I talk to people. More often than not, they're baffled to hear what I do for a living too, because it's so outside of the norm. That's kind of the standard though, don't you think? You run into people that you haven't seen in years, and the first thing they ask is, oh, what are you doing for work? Blah, blah, blah. I don't know. I find it weird. I find it a tad strange. And the reason I find it a tad strange is because the conversations really never have much depth. It's always, what are you doing for work? What have you been up to? How's your son? How's your daughter? Let's get together for drinks, blah, blah, blah. I'm just sick of the same old script. Tired of it. I want to live in a world where we tap into our potential. I want to live in a world where our government inspires health instead of accelerating degeneration, accelerating decay, accelerating death. This is the land of the bottom feeder. This is, ladies and gentlemen, from a biblical perspective, the land of the dead. And there's no way of denying that. Once you get your mind back, Lunabug, once you get your thinking cap on, which is just a metaphor for getting your common sense back, you'll be able to see. You'll be able to see the truth in the words that I speak. There really isn't any embellishment on this channel. I'm giving it to you blood raw, exactly how I see it. Luna, we gotta stay out of here, bud. Hey, let's go this way. I'm giving it to you blood raw, exactly how I see it. And in my opinion, I've got a little bit deeper of a view than the masses as to what's going on here. The con job that is being forced upon us, this reality to a large extent is being forced upon us. We grow up, we accept all this nonsense, and we define ourselves by the nonsense. We conform. Conformity to tyranny. Conformity to the suboptimal state is death. So, anyways, you guys, I'm just someone here on YouTube telling you that we have a hell of a lot more potential than what we're currently demonstrating as humans and experiencing. There's so much that we can learn. And it strongly appears that our ancestors did it. I mean, all you have to do is look at the religious edifices of ancient Egypt to get a brief clue, or a kind of a slight clue to the fact that maybe these people were doing some really interesting shit. And maybe, just maybe, we've been lied to about history, about how these people were primitive and blah, blah, blah. And maybe, just maybe, we've missed our mark. You ever think of that? Or did you just blindly believe everything that you were told? That's a problem. You know, school doesn't really teach you to question, does it? Looking back through my school history, if I want to call it that, or if we want to call it that, I never really had a teacher that inspired a rebellion or a rebellious spirit. And that's really what we need. We need to tap into the adversarial current. Teachers just tell you to listen to them for the most part. And if you don't listen, you don't pass. Ingenious mind control. Well, if you want to stay back and be embarrassed, and if you want your peers to look at you like you're stupid, well, don't pay attention to class. If you want to fit in with the crowd, listen to what you're told, and remember all your little factoids so you can pass your tests, and so the wheel turns. So the disgusting, rusty wheel turns. Well, I want to throw that wheel into a giant vat of chemicals that removes the rust. I want to see what's beneath the lies. I want to see what's beneath the bullshit. That's all I care about. I don't care about all this bullshit, the status quo nonsense. And believe me, there's a agenda behind the status quo and the education within the status quo. I'm not saying that all of it's wrong, because that's foolish. I'm also not saying that all teachers have bad intentions. I am, however, saying that there is a hierarchy of control that regulates how these schools work, the curriculum taught, you name it. And if my memory serves me well, it's the Carnegies, the Rockefellers, the Ford Foundation, the Rothschilds, etc., who basically run that agenda that sitteth atop. You know, there's like it's like the capstone of a pyramid, and then you have everything beneath it. The top of the capstone are the capstone of the pyramid that controls everything beneath it. Are these bloodlines, these families, these royal bloodline families, if you want to call them that, who have the majority of the resources, the money, who have funded all the wars, who control everything. And I don't want to play by their rules. In fact, I want to be their enemy. Which is why I want to illuminate my consciousness and try to experience the truth of who I am and what I am. Don't you guys remember when you were younger, when you felt like anything was possible? Or do you even remember that anymore? You see, that's another scary thing. The Matrix steals your childhood wonder, your childhood awe, and it turns you into a fucking robot. Don't tell me it doesn't. Because we have all the proof, and then some, and evidence to prove it. The Matrix turns you into a robot. The Matrix turns people into computers. What do computers do? They execute commands. I don't mean literally. You're a biological God suit walking around with a spirit bound to its flesh. You are a spirit bound to flesh. But again, the Matrix and the education, especially when you're younger, it teaches you how to execute commands. It keeps you just remembering data and factoids and things about history. It never teaches you to question what you're being told because, it's school. They would never lie to you. It's kind of like the whole idea of, it was on the news. It must be true. I'm just tired of living in a world. I'm not tired of living in this world. What am I saying? Because I know my words are powerful and I love being alive here. But it is pretty strange to witness how crippled everybody is. And you can see it. I've said it once and I'll say it again. Once you get your minerals into your system, once you stop eating all the crap all the time, once you get some exercise going and maybe do a little bit of fasting and, really start to remember that food is a sacred ritual. It's a process of information transference. You're fueling yourself when you eat. Once you start to remember those pieces to the puzzle and you start nourishing yourself, there's a good chance that you'll start to see things a little bit deeper. You'll be able to see past your blinders, and what used to be a black and white picture, there might start to be a little bit of color involved now. Imagine that. That's a beautiful thing, folks. Once you start to see color after you've been blind your whole life. And that's kind of what this process is of becoming more conscious. You start to recognize colors. It's kind of like that movie Equilibrium, to be honest. Haven't you guys ever seen Equilibrium, the movie with Christian Bale? If you haven't, that's homework. Yes, I give homework out on this channel. Equilibrium with Christian Bale. It's like illegal to feel in that movie. You see, if you realized how shut off your senses were and how little you actually do feel on the spiritual levels, mental, emotional, all of it, you'd start to see or recognize the symbolic weight and significance of that movie. Again, Christian Bale's movie, or he's in it. It's called Equilibrium. What a beautiful film. I love that movie. That movie's up there with The Matrix. It's up there with V for Vendetta. It's up there with the Animatrix. The Animatrix is pretty good. You can't really compare it, though, to The Matrix, the first Matrix. The first Matrix film is my favorite. I'm not a huge fan of the second and the third. It's just a personal preference. So, I like them all, but I've seen the first the most, the Matrix films. But Equilibrium, go watch that. And if you've seen it, watch it again. Maybe alter your consciousness a little bit next time you watch it. After you do the full body relaxation exercise and the thoughtlessness exercise for a little bit. Empty your mind. Stop watching movies like they're just there for you to be entertained. And that's one of the, that brings up my next point. It's so weird to see the masses so just enamored by entertainment. A lot of the stuff that you're being entertained by, it was never designed for entertainment. It's trying to snap you out of your trance. So when people first went and saw the Matrix film, when it came out, the first one, there for sure were people that were looking a little bit deeper. But a lot of you guys went there to be entertained, don't lie. And I'm not saying that entertainment is necessarily a bad thing, but I am saying that when you go to see something that is that philosophically abundant in gems, and your mind never notices that, and you just get entertained, that shows me that you're not really seeing. You're looking at things, you're not seeing things, just like Don Juan Matus, the Yaqui Indian sorcerer, said to Carlos Castaneda throughout his books. There's a huge difference between looking at something and seeing it. It's kind of like the comparison between black and white and color. So when you start to wake up, ladies and gentlemen, when you do actually start to wake up, you start to, your life, which is black and white right now, starts to take on a lot more color, and it starts to resemble, to some extent, Equilibrium, the movie. You become a target. That's something that we could talk about in future videos, and that's a complicated subject, being a targeted individual. I'm not going to get too into it right now, but your life kind of starts to look like the Truman Show a little bit. That's another piece of homework that you have got to watch. Never watch that movie to be entertained, however, because there's parallels to this life that are very abundant. When you watch something to be entertained, you don't see the truth. You guys on dirt bikes out here having fun. But the Truman Show with Jim Carrey, pretty much the only movie I like him in. A couple of others maybe. Yeah, I think, I don't like television, but I sure as hell love movies. Certain movies, at least. Some movies, or most movies, are just damn near stupid. But the Truman Show, Equilibrium, watch them now. Buy them and add them to your collection. You're not going to be disappointed in either of them if you watch it with a little bit more of your mind intact. Might want to take some Shazandra or a giant dose of Ganoderma, maybe some Kratom before you go and watch. See, there's a guy out there who's locked out of you can see him. He's locked out of that fence, and he isn't aware that there's another route into the field. So he's looking. This is a perfect example. I love how the universe does this. So there's a guy right there. He's locked out. See him? He's hopping the fence. This is hilarious. He's fucking hopping the fence. See him on the upper left-hand corner? But if he stopped for a minute to look around, he'd realize that there was another entrance about 40 feet behind him. See, so when you don't look, or when you just look at when you only look at what appears to be most obvious, it keeps you in a situation where you don't have like a 360 view. A lot of us react before we look at the bigger picture. Hope that makes sense. And only when you look at the bigger picture do you start to see. Again, there's a huge difference between seeing and looking. Let me just I don't know what's going on with my screen right now, folks. So that was a perfect example, and I brought that up because we were talking earlier about the difference between looking and seeing things. Seeing is when you see the whole picture, when you know all the pieces and how they fit. Looking is when you just look at a tiny isolated piece and you think you've figured it all out, when in fact there's so much more for you to learn. That's a very simplified definition of the difference between looking and seeing, and if you're interested in learning more, I would suggest reading through Carlos Castaneda's books. The Teachings of Don Juan is where I would start. Where Don Juan teaches Carlos the power of peyote, also known as mescaline or mescalito. I think it's been a long time since I've read that, but he teaches. It's a book on shamanism, on sorcery. So a lot of us, we refuse to see. We refuse to look at life from a different perspective. How you doing, Bugs? A lot of us are just, and a lot of us come into this world, and the way that we look at life, we think that that's just what life is. We never stand back and question things, so we don't see the bigger picture. I hope that makes sense. So right now, humanity is in a fallen state. We've lost 90% of our power or more, and we go about our lives thinking that we've got it all figured out. It's really disgusting, and it's a really gross thing to witness when you can see what's actually going on. And when you start to get more of your psychic abilities back, when you start to unplug from the garbage cocktail of crap you drink, the water, the New World Order cocktail filled full of the fluoride and the chlorine, the chloramine, the disinfectant byproducts, the algicides, the cobalts. When you start to get that crap out of your system and uplift your river of life, which is your blood, you start to get more of your sanity back, and the people around you start to strongly resemble zombies. It also gives you the unique opportunity to continue to travel up Jacob's ladder, if you will, and keep evolving through what you put on your skin, what you eat, what you think. You can start working on your lucidity while you're dreaming. You have a very special platform to launch off of here in this matrix once you start to wake up. If you can get a better grasp of what's actually going on here, that everything is God experiencing itself. There's so many things that we could say. By bringing that up, because it's very commonplace for people when they start, snapping out of their trance, the fear gets to them. The whole Truman Show syndrome can really take effect, and this is especially true for people who actually experience authentic Kundalini, and a lot of people don't. A lot of people delude themselves, if that's right. They buy into their mind lying to them. Kundalini is unmistakable. A lot of people contact me saying, I think I had a Kundalini awakening, I'm not sure. No. That's not how it works. We've talked about this in a handful of my videos. Go watch my video on Kundalini psychosis. I break it apart pretty well there. The Truman Show effect really starts to kick in when you experience Kundalini. Because when you experience real Kundalini, your energy field creates a giant ripple through the time-space continuum, whatever the fuck you want to call it, this quantum vortex that we live in. When you experience Kundalini, your energy field, when it wakes up, when your Merkaba does, it puts a giant ripple through the time-space continuum. And there are agencies, hierarchies of controllers, if you want to call them that, affiliated with these crime families that run the world here. You go noticed. You see, the military is all about frequency warfare, ladies and gentlemen. The military understands the electromagnetic spectrum. The military understands, at least branches of it, subatomic particles and the function of sacred geometry, the things that they understand what holds this universe together, and they use it against us. It's kind of like in the Secret Covenant, the document, the allegedly leaked document about the Illuminati. I think it's fraudulent, but it's still potent in its symbolism. There's a part in the Secret Covenant that goes on to say that we understand them better than they understand themselves. And then that's not the exact phrasing, but it says something to the effect of, for we know the secrets of the absolute, and because of that we stand above their relative perception, or something like that. Go check out duckduckgo.com, type in the Secret Covenant PDF and read it. I also have a couple of videos here on my YouTube channel breaking that apart to the best of my ability. It's time for a updated version of that. But it's true, folks. They don't want, here's the agenda. This is it, summarized right now. This is the agenda. They don't want us evolving. They don't want us transcending out of the land of the bottom feeder. They want us controllable. They don't want us becoming the angel again. They don't want us ascending from hell. They want to keep us here, and this realm is hell. Every Gnostic that is worth his or her salt knows that this fucking dimension is hell. They want to keep us here because misery loves company, and they also want to experiment on us. They want to try out their poisons on us through their food and statistically look at how the iron and the metals and the aluminum are affecting us. Wake up. They are using you as a test to see how they can control a once limitless species of angel humans and keep them dumbed down. I hope that makes sense. A little, I think what came out was a little disorganized. Excuse me. They want to keep us here. The agenda is to keep us away from Kundalini energy, which is a system contained within our genome, which is lying dormant around our coccyx, our pelvic floor, what the Hispanics call the scorpion tail, because the coccyx looks like a scorpion tail. And in fact, some of the more ancient, more Hispanic style, symbols of chakras, the scorpion was the Muladhara chakra, which is the red root chakra. You see, the modern rendition of chakras that most people are familiar with, just the 7 going up the spine, which are connected to the 7 traditional planetary spheres, and you name it. Those are just one interpretation of the chakras. Now, I've experienced chakras in my first full-blown Kundalini experience where I had X-ray vision and I could look through my chest and see them, and they were roughly similar to the traditional, more mainstream rendition of the chakras, but there are ancient renditions of chakras. In some of the Hispanic renditions, there's a piece of jade, a flag, a rose, flint even. So long story short, they want you to think that Kundalini is evil. That's part of the agenda. And they want you to be blinded by blind faith and just tapping into mainstream religion. And there's this huge agenda right now for people to go back to like Christianity, and I have no problem with that. I've for years, ever since probably 17, I've been a Christian. But I'm not a Christian by your definition at all. In fact, the Christian faith that I practice, most mainstream brainwashed Christians, no offense, they would consider me a heretic because I look at the snake as the redeemer, the good guy that tried to wake us up in the Garden of Eden. The serpent that offered Adam and Eve the red pill or the apple of Eden. You know, that's what the Matrix is about, right? Morpheus is the serpent, Trinity is Eve, and Neo is Adam. And just like in the Bible, Trinity leads Adam. Trinity is Eve, Adam is Neo, to the serpent who is Morpheus. Morpheus says, do you want to know the truth between good and evil, right and wrong, just like the serpent? Here, take this pill. It's the fucking apple of Eden. And what happens when he takes the red pill? Well, he gets kicked out of the Garden of Eden, which is the Matrix, which is the illusionary world that imprints holographically into your consciousness, this bullshit ass world where you interpret sensory information in a diluted, clouded way, and you just take on this false identity that you think is real. You believe with every fiber of your being that the Matrix is real, don't you? You see, you're looking at one thing. You're not seeing it, ladies and gentlemen. Just like I said with the metaphor of the guy jumping the fence. You're looking, you're not seeing. You took the first picture that was presented to you at a young age and you went with it. And you define your life by it. You define your world by looking through, it's like looking, you know what it's like? It's like Plato's cave to a large extent, folks. In fact, we are living in a real-life version of it's like a real-life prolonged MK Ultra acid trip experiment where we're stuck in a modern version of Plato's cave. But in fact, it's like, here's what it's like. You're born into this world, and your assemblage point is pretty much free. You have perceptual fluidity. That's why babies look off into the corners and have fun and are giggling and talk to things and appear to be communicating with things, even if it's telepathically. Some babies look like they're telepathically tuned into things. That's why babies do those types of things, ladies and gentlemen. They're in a different world. They have perceptual fluidity. Their assemblage point, which we've gone over time and time again, hasn't been fixed to a new position because as we've gone over in the past, the assemblage point can move. And when it moves and stays in one particular position for too long, it has the ability to lock into a new position. And depending on where your assemblage point is positioned, and the assemblage point is it's a very important part of your energy field that dictates how much of the electromagnetic spectrum you can interpret, your senses, your glands, your organs. But where the hell was I going with that? Excuse me. Bear with me, folks. I got a lot of exercise today. I'm doing quite a bit of fasting. I'm a little loopy. But babies come into this world with perceptual fluidity, but as they observe their parents, as they observe the programmed world around them that appears to be largely made of solid objects, we get taken away from the fact that we live in an energetic continuum of sorts, the quantum field of fucking sacred geometry, all these particles banging apart, vibrating at different densities and frequencies. Everything is actually immaterial. It looks material, but it's not. It's an illusion. And because of where your assemblage point's been fixed, based on repetition of information from the Matrix, you look at everything from a non-energetic perspective now. You have a rough idea that, thing, there's more to life than just the physical. You have a kind of a hunch, if you will, deep down in your in your mind, that you are a spirit here, and that's the truth. You're a spirit. But you can't really grasp it because of your programming, because of where your assemblage point is fixed. So long story short, the baby is forced over time to lose its perceptual fluidity because it's forced to look at life through the lens of culture. It's kind of like those things when you go to when you go to the beach, you can put a quarter in them, and then you look through the lenses, like off at the islands or whatever. I'm pretty sure you guys know what I'm talking about. Haven't you ever been to the beach? Unfortunately, some of you guys have never been to the beach. You're definitely going to want to go to the beach at some point because it's a very magical place. But some parks have these too, you guys, where it's like you put a quarter in these silver goggles that are fixed to a pole, and then you look at information off in the distance. So that's kind of what happened to you at a young age. You had a couple of years of perceptual fluidity, but in increments it was stolen from you because you started to get your enforced injections, and you started to eat all the crap food, and you started to observe your parents, and you started to adopt their characteristics, and you started to learn to look at things from a solid perspective. You started to live in a world of objects, so to speak. You were taken away from your energetic freedom. Your assemblage point was shifted because through repetition, you were forced to look through those fucking lenses at the world the way that the Matrix wanted you to see it. And through repetition, you kept your eyes fixed to the suction cup goggles that you looked through that life through, the lenses. And over time, everything molded into a new world. And you forgot that you were forced to look at life through those lenses. And now you don't have perceptual fluidity. I don't care how conscious you want to say you are and all this other shit. Don't lie to yourself. We all have so much room for improvement. And that's one of the other things about the Matrix. The Matrix steals your perceptual fluidity to such an extent that by the time you're 10, 13, 14 years old, you don't even remember that there is perceptual fluidity. Perceptual fluidity is you being able to grasp the bigger picture, to be able to see instead of look. I hope that makes sense. Now I'm speaking to some extent in parables or metaphors, but it's true. Luna, hey, over this way. Come on, babe. Go get it. The agenda is to steal your perception, to shutter your consciousness and put you into a state of being that resembles deep sleep. Do you have any clue how much of a gift it is to be alive even? Do you have any fucking clue how important it is, or how magical it is, what a fucking miracle it is to even be alive and fucking wondering what's going to happen in 20 minutes, or, am I a spirit? Do I live after I die? I mean, fuck. You guys are just taking for granted something very special. Life is a gift. But like I mentioned earlier in the video, they've got you obsessed with TV. And they've got you worshiping false idols. They've got you worried about Cardi B. They've got you worried about Katy Perry. They've got you worried about a whole lot of nothing. A whole lot of wasted time is what this all translates to, folks. Excuse me. Drop it. They've got you wasting a lot of your time. Think about all the things you've done in your life that you just did to kill time. And now think of all the time wasted that you can never get back. Do you have any clue what can be done in an hour? In 1 hour, I can ground myself while taking my dog to the field after I clean my skin with the Dr. Kassar skin cleaning solution. I can absorb some light and weave it into hormone, or also known as vitamin D. It's a pro hormone. I can also do some sprints. I can then, after I work up a good sweat, clean my skin again with the Dr. Kassar skin cleaning solution. Maybe read a book, or I could even do some grounding therapy where I intentionally use my creative mind to pull energy from the earth through my foot meridians. Luna, hey. I could come out here with a meal and eat in silence. Do you hear that noise? Do you hear just the low static of the matrix? Sure, there's noise, there's wind. You can hear cars off in the distance, some children yelling off in the background, and some balls being dribbled. But do you hear that? That's silence. That's beautiful. And most people are addicted to noise. Did you know that? Most people are addicted to stimulation. And stimulation takes you away from that quiet space. That quiet space where peace can be attained and you can redevelop a proper outlook on life, because we all have to go through a redevelopment. You see, I can get a lot more done here than underneath a roof, believe it or not. I've got some magical entities right here next to me. Trees. I've got a beautiful little dog here and an entire blanket of electron doning energy. The earth is an electron donor. It's a giant energy blanket. And the science of grounding has been proven. This is not a pseudoscience. Read Clinton Over's book, Earthing. Grounding has an anti-inflammatory effect. It has an antioxidant effect. Imagine that. You don't think the creator that created all this was stupid, do you? But again, I wonder what the statistics are, and you'd really have to do a little bit of digging before you just subscribe to any statistic, because a lot of the ones, especially on Google, are bought out and dumb. But I wonder how much time people spend indoors compared to outdoors. I mean, with what's going on with the lockdowns right now and all the nonsense, there's hardly anybody outdoors barbecuing or doing anything. Which is kind of nice to me, because I can come down here and have a once semi-busy field to myself, but I'd rather see humanity getting outside, getting their vitamin D levels up, being around the trees. I mean, what do you think's healthier, being outside, under the sun, under the, breathing fresh air, or being in your house where the air's 10 times dirtier than outside because it gets trapped, regardless of how fancy your ventilation system is, and all of your electromagnetics, all of your garbage bullshit food, all of the bad things that you do to yourself, they're in your fucking home. So we've talked about it, and we're going to talk about it again, because repetition of a message constitutes mental programming, and the New World Order is here, programming you constantly, tirelessly, to be a useful idiot. In a world like that, it's important to spread some repetition of positive things. You need to, if you're serious about your health, immediately start taking action towards turning your house into a health regeneration pod. You spend a large majority of your life indoors. You spend 1/3 of your life indoors sleeping, another large majority of your life indoors after work resting, yada, yada, yada. You spend most of your life in your home, believe it or not. It only makes sense then to turn your house into a standby system where whatever you do, you get more out of it. Whatever you do in your home. So what does that mean? That means water filtration, shower, sink, everything going to everything in your house. Get a whole house water filter. And on top of that, get a shower filter. That way the whole house water filter scrubs a large majority of the sediment and the chlorines and the crap out of the water, regardless of where it goes. Then do secondary filters. Shower filtration. Place shungite in a grid around your entire home. I have multiple shungite grids around my house. Then start attenuating the electromagnetic fields, because those are one of the biggest assaults. You're basically being lightly microwaved to death in your home, especially if you live in a major city. Then you go through your cupboards and you get rid of all of the bullshit. Get rid of it. Throw it away or give it away. I don't care. Get rid of it. You need to make at least 70% of your diet whole foods. I've been saying this formula for years, and I've also been saying that if humanity did this for 5 years, 70% of their diet whole foods, then so many bad health statistics would change. Right now, 90% of people's diet is garbage food. Don't believe me? Go to a supermarket. Go look at 99% of the people at the supermarket or Costco. It's all crap in their carts. Food, water, and air. That's how you start changing your house into a health regeneration pod. Proper air filtration. And then the lighting systems. It comes down to the attenuation and mitigation of electromagnetic fields. You need to ground stuff in your house. You need to change the lighting, change the food, the air, and the water, and boom. And then if you really feel adventurous, you can do EMF blocking paint, which I have a recipe for, which I'll share with you in the near future. Come on, guys. We have all got to start taking better care of our health, lest we want to be consumed by this disgusting beast system, which is a system. The system that we're in this dimension right now, has a goal. And that goal is to keep you plugged in. It doesn't want you to have perceptual fluidity. It does not want you to unplug from the matrix. Just like Neo unplugged from the matrix, you can do that here in a way that makes the waking up process in the Matrix films seem nothing like what real, true Kundalini waking up is like. Hope that makes sense. That was a word soup. You think that scene was frightening when Neo woke up in the Matrix? Or he woke up in the pod and realized that the Archons were using him as a fuel source? Wait until you wake up via the Kundalini pathways in your meridian system and in your energetic body. You wait and see what happens. You see, truly becoming conscious or attaining gnosis or eudaimonia, as the Stoics called it, doesn't come without a price. That price being you being targeted by the system. I've said it once and I'll say it again. One human who accessed the angel genome and woke up their Kundalini can change the world. Now, considering we live in a demonic ran hell realm, they have their hierarchies and princes and kings and dukes, all of these hierarchical systems of demons that work through the military and a handful of other organizations. I'm not saying it's all bad, because it's not, but a large majority of it is poisoned, a large majority of government. They have an entire agenda to suppress the evolution of consciousness. Can't you see what's going on here? It's all so simple that it's so difficult to see. Anyways, you guys, the wind is picking up. I'm going to wrap this one up. I love you all. May peace be with you.